I can talk through like the client journey, but I think the number one thing that we're nailing down is who's your target guest? How do you want your business or your brand to make people feel? And I think that that same concept really transfers over to the design.
It's just the goal is to stop the scroll, right? They're gonna find your listing, they're gonna be looking through those photos, and it might pull them in just a little bit longer to keep looking at the listing. And that's the goal that eventually would make them book.
Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacey St. John, and I am so stinking excited to spend a few minutes with you today. Now, before we jump into this episode, I'm going to read a quote to you, and it says, I have survived the rigors of time, of marriage, of childbearing, of building a business from scratch. I have survived very nicely, and I think I make the most of it. Those beautiful lessons about resilience come to us from Martha Stewart. Now, in this episode, we are sitting down with Olivia and Ashlin, two sisters who are running a marketing, branding, and design agency called Abide Away. And they are surely a sheer delight. I cannot wait for you to meet them. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Olivia and Ashlin. So today we are here with Ashlin and Olivia from Abide Away, and we are going to be talking all about STR design. First of all, thank you both for being here.
Yeah, we're
excited.
So let's dive in. And why don't you share with our audience first a little bit about who you are and what you do at Abide Away?
Well, it's fun talking to you because you have the STR sisterhood and we are real life sisters. So that's kind of fun. But Abide Away is our business that is, we call ourselves a creative studio for short term rentals because we kind of have a suite of services that we offer. But essentially, it's interior design, murals, branding, and websites for short term rentals. So, all of the creative things to help set you apart and get you booked again and again.
So really our goal is to create those like standout stays, and that combination of services just really creates like a cohesive guest experience initially when someone's looking for a property and booking online, but then also when they open the front door and step into the space that they're able to have like a really standout experience the whole way through. And so that's kind of our vision with our business.
I love that. And I want to dive into that. But first, I want to hear the story about how two of you as sisters got together in this business. So take us back to the very beginning. How did it all start?
The very beginning is on my college room bed. And I am sitting there. I don't know if you use the Marco Polo app, but it's basically like video messaging that you can send to each other. And we actually have this saved, but I sent Ashlyn a video that was like, hey,
I just had an idea like right now. We partner up, design Airbnbs, and like create social media for it.
I was in interior design at the time, and I was like, hey, I have this idea of combining like interior design with branding, murals, like all these things that Ashlyn was getting into as her like art had begun to flourish. And I was like, we could go into business together. This would be so cool. It combines all of our skill sets. We are sisters who are also best friends and also have like very complementary skill sets.
Yeah, I would say like we both come in, we're both creative, but in different angles and different ways. And so we have kind of always been spinning ideas. But then when Olivia came up with this, she was like, hey, this is like a niche way that we can use the different skills that we both have in different areas and then work together, which is something that we've always thought would be so fun. So I was on the receiving end of the Marco Polo, and and that's kind of how it initially the idea formed. And then what was really cool was just our first project came about because Olivia was doing an interior design project, a residential project at the time, just for someone's, normal home. And then they were starting up a short-term rental. And that kind of just like started things off where we had kind of a guinea pig project where we could get our feet wet trying this with a really great client to get things going. And then that kind of just led into actually kicking off the business after that.
That's so fun. That's so fun. I want to talk with you about, when someone comes to you with a property, right? The fact that you do everything from branding and marketing to website design to murals to interior design, it really, I think, is genius because it allows you to come full circle with a property. So, you know, cohesiveness in branding is so incredibly important and having a consistent journey from one stage to another. So, if someone comes to you with a property that they want to utilize your services for, talk to us a little bit about where's the starting point? What types of things should they know when they're having an initial discussion for, hey, I want to build this cohesive brand and story for my STR?
Yeah, it can be overwhelming at first, right? Sometimes people come to us and it's almost like decision paralysis of like, wait, you do all these things, like we need all these things, but like, where do we start? So that's definitely like a real thing. I can talk through like the client journey, but I think the number one thing that we're nailing down, which goes for really every piece of the puzzle, is who's your target guest? Like, who is coming to stay at this property? And along with that, usually, like, why are they coming? So, like, what's the location? Is this a beach getaway? Is this a mountain escape? Is this like a farmhouse on your own property? Like, all of those things determine the direction of the design, the murals, the branding, the website eventually. And yeah, I think that's kind of like the starting point. Interior design really is like the first piece that you have to get rolling. And then usually at the same time, branding can kind of be happening in the background, getting that created, the murals designed, all of those things kind of happen at the same time. And then the website would be like step two. As soon as the brand is finished, that can be implemented.
And, coming into this, I think our initial thought was, okay, we get a client in the door and like all of these services are going to happen all at the same time. They're going to want to do it all. And like, as we've seen reality play out, like that ideal circumstance isn't what actually happens. Like we're working with real people with real budgets and real goals and real priorities. And so then, we always start with like what we call our clarity call. And we're gonna like really get to know like what are your priorities and needs. And often that means we're gonna start with maybe one service that's like their priority at the moment. And so like as a small business, we want to like really have a personalized custom experience to what that person really needs at the time. And of course, as big as they can dream, we want to do it, but also realizing there's a practical element of like some people need to pick a practical starting point and then build from there. And so we like to meet people where they're at and see what we can create to fit their needs at the current moment.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I also want to go back to the topic of ideal guest avatar because I think, I hear so many people talking about that, and it's such a critical element. And I think it's also challenging for folks to grasp onto the fact of, well, wait a minute, if I really niche down and I focus on this one specific guest, I'm going to repel other types of guests. And first of all, I think it's important that we dig so much deeper than just who the ideal guest avatar is. Maybe it's a mom with young kids who lives in the Midwest. I mean, that's really the who, or maybe, their family earns X amount of dollars in income. But also, in my opinion, we have to go deeper than that and understand what that person is thinking when they're looking at properties, what that person is thinking when they are making a booking decision, what that person is stressed out about, what they're afraid of, what they're concerned about if they book the wrong property. Because those are the things that ideal guest is not actually telling anyone. That's a conversation he or she is having with themselves. And so when you are having a conversation about diving into that ideal guest avatar, how are you digging deeper to know, again, this is how this property should be outfitted to really play to that person's, obviously, their needs, but their thoughts and their emotions as well?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, actually, it's kind of funny because I think of our branding process a little bit here. when Ashlin is designing a brand, like on that questionnaire call, the kickoff call, there's always a question of like, how do you want your business or your brand to make people feel? And I think that that same concept really transfers over to the design. Like, do you want them to feel peaceful and like they're refreshed, or you just like, I want them to have a party, like the best fun time ever. And often it's a blend of those things, right? It's like, can we do it all? And often like there is a way to work all of those pieces in, but we like to really just think about, like, the design, like, how many people are coming and what kind of makeup do those groups have? So, often, I feel like it ends up being multifamily, like, multi-generational family properties. There's, like, a lot of these, like, larger homes, maybe there's 6 bedrooms, and so then you're taking into account a lot of different things because you've got parents who are worried about their kids' safety, making sure that their kids have things to play with, toys. They don't have to bring everything on the airplane. You got grandma who needs a quiet place to sleep. And how can we have a bedroom that's maybe a little bit away from the kids' playroom? There's all these different elements. And so a lot of that plays especially into the space planning phase of design, which really kind of happens after I have the kickoff call with our client. But that's when I'm putting everything into, I do a 3D model, they'll get like a 2D floor plan from that model, but that's a time where I'm laying things out and I'm really trying to think through like the safety and the layout and just the bedrooms and the makeup of all of that so that there's a natural flow that not only looks good when someone's booking, but that actually gets good reviews and there's not these things that's like, "Oh, I wish you would have thought of that when you were designing."
Mhm. Sure. Do you have any different philosophies when it comes to design that you feel like, okay, every property has to have X, Y, and Z, or every property needs to be sure that we cover these four categories? Any certain philosophies when it comes to design that you feel like would be important for folks to know?
I think my biggest like hot take really has to do with finding the story of a property. And that doesn't really sound like a hot take, but I do feel like the industry at times has become like who's the most flashy, who's the most out there. Like that's what everyone kind of is going for. And I'm almost in favor of like this return to like, wait a second, what fits this property? Like, what fits the home's architecture, the location, the maybe like even it can be things like the street name has a story, or like I don't know, I'm dying to work with, like, a potter and, like, do, like, a home that's like the potter's place and, like, maybe display their handmade ceramics, like, I love those intentional touches, and so anything that we can do to just really make it feel intentional is important to me, and so that's really, like, my philosophy. There's a lot of things that we include in each design, ways that we think through, like, we talked about already, like beds and like the layout, things that I'm thinking about in terms of amenities. We have like a giant list of like 50 amenities that we brainstormed and we give it away as a freebie, but like I still look at that when I'm doing design projects, trying to think of like something unique that we can put in the space. So,
And I hear about, identifying the story within a property, and I love that concept. I also feel like for someone who is working with the designer, it's like, oh, thank you, Jesus, because the designer is coming up with the story. So if someone is bootstrapping it and doing it themselves, what recommendations would you provide to them for how to create the story of their property?
I love that. Well, definitely like look at the location. Think of things that like are in the location, but that maybe aren't like quite as obvious. So maybe like don't do something like the beach, but maybe you take like the palms or like, I don't know, some kind of umbrella inspiration or like pull some piece of the puzzle and use that as like a seed of inspiration. I don't know if that totally is making sense, but I like to, yeah, just like even like I've seen in Indianapolis, like There's the Indy 500, and I just was aware of a home that they did like the Brickyard was like their name. I was like, "Oh, that's so smart," because it's not so generic with the Indy 500, but it's pulling like an element out of it. And I just thought that was really cool.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. I also think like I look at like the street name or just the history of the home. Like maybe the street or the suburb has something interesting going on. Maybe the home like used to be a schoolhouse or like it's is it old? Is it new? Like what's kind of the background there? On digging a little bit for that can be interesting. Like I mentioned, like anything about the host that they want to kind of pull in. Maybe they're a potter, maybe they're an antique collector, and they gather some goods that are included. Anything like
Mhm.
that. And then the last piece is just I guess thinking through, like, if you want to theme it out, you can do that. But I always encourage hosts, like, if you're gonna do a theme, you're kind of like creating your own story, right? Like, what do you want to theme it out? Who do you want to niche down to? But if you're gonna do that, like, go all in. It's not like something that you can really like do halfway. And I think sometimes people try to dabble in a theme and that can almost backfire but rather like if you're gonna do it, go all in and make yourself like the destination for Lord of the Rings lovers or whatever it may be. So
Mhm. What are your opinions on themed properties? Do you feel like they're worthwhile for folks to consider, or do you feel as though there was a time and place and there may not be now?
I think it's very dependent on your market. If I were doing a property like that, I would want to be getting an opinion from someone who is really, really good at the data of Airbnb and short-term rentals. I mean, there are companies that are doing this. I wouldn't do it just like on a whim. So for me, like as a designer, I would actually want to lean on someone else's expertise to make that final decision. I can execute all day and make it awesome, but I want someone else to be running the numbers and to know that that's a strategic decision for your location.
Mm. Yep. Yep. That makes sense. And I would imagine in some areas like a Disney, property, perhaps theming makes sense. And in other areas, perhaps it doesn't. So I love the thought of leveraging the data to know, hey, is this the right move for me for this property?
Right.
Yeah, and in certain cities, you see, like, Bachelorette, for instance, is, like, that's where everybody goes, and so that's where you see all the, pink tripped out houses, so there's, like, certain markets where that makes more sense,
For sure.
Yeah,
For
and
sure.
see what the competition is, like, are there already 15 these in Nashville? Maybe they don't need another one, but maybe you can do it differently, so
Amen. Amen. From your perspective, when does it make sense for someone to bring in a designer? Let's say they are just putting a property under contract. At what point in the acquisition process would you feel like it would make sense to bring in a designer if they are indeed going to be utilizing a designer for their short-term rental?
yeah, we usually say, like, the earlier the better. Typically, investors are moving quickly, right? So, as soon as closing is confirmed, like, you wanna kinda have your designer lined up and ready to go. You don't have to have your down payment done before things have closed, but as soon as that happens, you kind of wanna be ready to jump in. So, during that time when maybe inspections are happening or things are kind of getting serious, that's a pretty good time to be talking to people, seeing what their timelines look like, and getting ready to jump.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Any other topics that you feel like as folks are preparing to close on their property, they should be thinking about when it comes to design? Is this the time to be thinking about who is my ideal guest avatar? What kind of brand do I want for this? I often believe that the earlier the better, the more that we can get ahead of these things. So by the time you're hitting the closing table, like you are ready to rock and roll, you're ready to go. I'm imagining when folks come to that first kickoff call or clarity call, you may want them to think about these things in advance, correct?
Right. Yeah, for sure. Like we like to get an idea of like definitely we want to be seeing the listing at that point before we jump on the call. But really, like any ideas that they have, we want them to be bringing to the table. And often, like some of these things are already playing into the process as you're even scoping out what's a good property to purchase. So, yeah, being ready with all your ideas, I feel like is as soon as possible is always good. And often, like the home can determine what some of that looks like.
And that's helpful for, like, the planning of, the renovation budget too. I mean, are you gonna completely put turf in the backyard and make a pickleball court? That's gonna change, like, what your planning process looks like. So kind of thinking through those things earlier on. But then we also do, like, home refreshes. So it doesn't necessarily mean, someone's coming with this fresh new property, but maybe they have one that's underperforming or that they're ready to just take to the next level. And so in that case, we can be brought on, or any designer can be brought on at any point to kind of think through how to take it one step better.
For sure. For sure. I want to go back. You mentioned murals a few times, and I want to talk about murals. First of all, why do you love them so much for short term rentals?
Yeah, I paint the murals here at Abide Away, and it's so fun. I just love seeing the transformation of a space and how a wall that's just a blank slate can completely bring a space to life and doesn't take, all of this different artwork, and it just takes one intentional design that's custom. And so I think what we love with it for short-term rentals specifically is when guests are looking for a rental, they're not taking very long on each listing before they decide if they're going to click in, keep looking at it, or move on to the next one. And although maybe murals don't speak to everyone, the way we design them, we really try to have a joyful, intentional approach to our murals that would be generally well received. And honestly, it's just the goal is to stop the scroll, right? They're going to find your listing, they're going to be looking through those photos, and it might pull them in just a little bit longer to keep looking at the listing. And that's the goal, what eventually would make them book, is just taking a little more time looking through it. And so it's just really fun. We love how murals pull in, like what Olivia was saying about the story of the home, all the intentionality of the interior design, pulling in the location of the home. We're able to just take those pieces and then create a custom design that fits the host and their needs. So, yeah.
I love that. And I also think that a lot of folks may assume that murals are very expensive. So, talk to us about the cost. I mean, I'm sure obviously the costs range depending on the size of the mural and the complexity, but how might one budget for a mural or know if something is worthwhile from a budgetary perspective to have a mural put in?
Yeah, absolutely. So murals are an investment. I mean, that is just part of it. With custom art, there is a lot of work and intentionality that goes into it. But I think it's one of the biggest bangs for your buck that someone as a short-term rental owner can consider doing. And so the way we price our murals is by square footage. So it's pretty standard system of based on the square foot. There's a range depending on the complexity of the design they're looking for, the texture of the wall. Are we exterior on brick or stucco, or is it interior drywall? There's a range there. But what I provide once our someone can send me like pictures of their wall, measurements of their walls, and what I'll send back is a bunch of options. So they're going to see like, okay, if we do wall A, that's this amount of square footage. If we do wall A and B, that's this amount of square footage. If we want to do a lower budget option, we could use a portion of wall A and do a design that fits into this portion of the space. And so all of a sudden you're getting all these price points to fit different scopes of projects. And hosts, they could land anywhere from $1,000, that's our minimum, or 5, 10. They want to theme out the whole place and cover it with murals, 20,000. Like there is definitely a big range. And so the goal there is really like we can do hit a wide variety based on how can we get creative with using a certain amount of wall space that they have. um
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. And talk to me a little bit about the process of creating a mural. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I use Procreate app on my iPad, and basically what I'll do is I try to get a good understanding for where the mural is located, like what the home design looks like. So whether that's Olivia who designed it or if they design it themselves or have a different designer, just seeing what that space looks like. I'll pull together a mood board with some inspiration, talk to the owner and see what they're looking for. So just kind of pulling together all the information and letting my brain spin on it. And then I use the Procreate app, which allows me to create art to scale. So I'm creating a mini version of it ahead of time. And I create it all exactly what it's going to look like and show it to the host so they know exactly what they're going to get before I come in the door. They have rounds of revisions so that they're sure to just, be really happy with it before the brush touches the wall. I even show them a mock up of like, here's what it looks like actually in the space, like on the wall. So there's really no surprises going into it. And then I use a projector typically, if the space allows, to get it on the wall as far as tracing the outlines. So, like, proportions are going to be spot on, and there's not issues with any of that. So, it's really a nice process because sometimes you think about, like, oh, what's the artist going to do? Like, there's a little bit of a fear factor with that. But no, like, this is actually a very streamlined, like, you know what you're going to get. We're going to like land at something that we all love. At least that's definitely the goal. And so then we go in and paint it. And I do travel. I'm very flexible at this time of life. So located in Indiana. So obviously that's the easiest place to paint murals, but I love traveling and there's definitely options for nationwide.
And so when you do the actual installation, if you will, of a mural and you trace it first and then
Mhm.
you do the painting,
Yeah.
is there any specific product that you've got to put over a mural to make it so that the paint doesn't chip off? Or how does someone care for a mural?
Yeah, so I use really good quality exterior house paint from Sherwin-Williams, and so I use that on basically, I mean, any project that allows for that, which is the majority, and it's really good quality paint. I mean, the murals I've done obviously, I'm young, I haven't had, like I can't look back at 20 years of murals and see how they've done, but I've, talked with very experienced muralists, and then all the ones that I've done, the color has held up phenomenally well. I've been really happy with that. And then that exterior paint, it's really good with weather, humidity, all of those sort of factors. There are options for like a UV coating if that's something like someone's really concerned about, or like an anti-graffiti spray, but I've never used those. I have just no top coat. That's typically the process, but there are some options for if you're really worried about graffiti or something like that.
And I also think, a lot of folks have this sense of, all right, if I'm going to do a mural, I'm going to do it on a large open wall. I'm curious, do people do murals in smaller spaces, in bathrooms, in bedrooms, in kitchens? What are some maybe creative places to put a mural?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many places you could do one. Even if, you're wondering, where could I put a mural? Like, I look at videos of people's house tours and be like, okay, I would recommend here, here, and here as your options. Maybe they haven't drilled in on like, this is the perfect wall. But it's kind of cool getting fresh eyes on it and seeing like, oh, did you notice like this hallway would be like perfect for a spot? And so yeah, I think there's kind of those like natural places where if there's a big wide open wall, of course you could do a mural there. We see a lot of game rooms being very popular in Airbnbs right now. That's a fun spot for a mural. Even, yeah, like bathrooms, feature walls in bedrooms. There's ways to do ones that aren't necessarily like super splashy. Like maybe you don't have a themed Airbnb, but you want to do just like a soft textured wall that looks almost like a wallpaper. There's a variety of styles that can kind of be brought into different spaces. So, yeah, even I would say another cool place to put murals is exterior if you have like unique outdoor amenities. So maybe like by a pool, it can just bring that space to life, by a pickleball court, whatever it might be. But exterior is definitely an interesting option as well.
You love that.
There's one on the bottom of a pool, Jace.
Yes, on my bucket list. I think that would be so cool. Get some drone shots of that one.
There you go. Now, I hope they drain the pool in order for you to paint that.
Be good at scuba diving.
Oh, that's fun. All right, next, I want to move to something that is near and dear to my heart, the design hotline that you both host inside the STR Sisterhood community. First of all, I just love, love, love that you do that. So thank you, first and foremost, for doing that. But tell us what folks can expect if they've never been to a design hotline. What's it like in your words?
Well, first of all, you can expect a cheesy icebreaker almost every week, every month.
We trickle in for a few minutes. Yeah.
So basically, we just open the floor for women to come and basically ask any questions that you have about your interior design, murals, branding, websites, even social media. We talk about that a little bit. But what we do is we can invite you on the call as a speaker. So a lot of the time people are pulling up their Airbnb listing, they're asking specific questions, or like today we were looking at floor plans. We just had this like, I don't know, an hour ago, for a specific property that's about to launch and just kind of giving some feedback and advice.
Yeah, it's so fun. We love it. I mean, it's just a cool opportunity to get to know the different people in the sisterhood for those that come back month after month. And kind of just hear about what people are doing. There's so many cool things that people are doing, like glamping, all sorts of stuff. And so just to be able to be a part of those conversations is really neat. And it happens every month. So just a time for people to pop on the call. It's not intimidating at all. There's not even a video unless you decide to join as a speaker. So it's really fun.
You can come with your hair up in a ponytail and no talk.
Oh, for sure.
That's right. Now, I just love it that you pour into our community. So thank you both, again, for dedicating that time and your expertise. I know it's helping so many people. So thank you.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, I seriously love the group, and just the environment that you've created is just so collaborative, and yeah, we just love that.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I am a huge believer that we are all in business to not only, improve our own lives, but isn't it great that we can proactively help each other? Like that just makes us all go to bed at night feeling that much better, right?
Yeah.
And I think in a world where so many people are out to get each other or competing against each other or you know, in disagreement. I just feel like, wow, I think it's so special for us to just all come together. And it sounds so cheeseball and hokey pokey, but at the end of the day, like it fills my cup to not only be able to serve other people, but see other women helping each other. So thank you. All right. So I want to ask you if you were working with a client that had $1,000 and they said, okay, I want to improve my kitchen. What recommendations would you give to them?
Well, it depends on the client, but my initial thought, what I end up suggesting many, many times, is to paint the cabinets and change your hardware. Often, like that is almost like the main improvement that you need. If you have cabinets that are like in good order, we see that like it just updates the look of a kitchen so quickly. And changing out like, like your drawer pulls and your cabinets, like just all that hardware can really change the look and modernize it. So that's my first thought. That's not gonna get you quite to $1,000 though.
We do a like by room interior design rate as well. So like if someone comes and they're like, I literally just want help on my kitchen. And that is all. Don't touch anything else, just the kitchen. And so like Olivia can come in and design the kitchen for them and that's gonna be under $1,000. So since I'm much into
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to ask the same question for a living room. If they say I have $1,000 and I want to improve my living room, what would your first go-to be?
I think it depends on their furniture, but I definitely think an updated sofa often is gonna be the answer. I know that's very basic, but it's very often that, like, those are outdated, and that's just a quick swap that can be made. Also, there could be a room an opportunity in a living room for a mural. So that could be another fun way to go.
I know I'm not an interior designer in our sisterhood, but I would say a new rug and throw pillows just like can make something really pop.
Love that.
What are your thoughts on that?
I like it. And you might have some money left over for a record player, little record corners. Then you have a little listening lounge amenity to add. So, very cool.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna keep rolling with this. Okay, somebody has $1,000 and they want to improve their backyard or their outdoor space. What would you go to first?
In general, well, I mean, I am thinking like if they have a fence line, a mural. But to me,
I would be a sucker for a mirror duck.
murals are very fun and like eye catching. Often, outdoor is your hero shot, like not across the board, but pretty often. So that can be a really fun spot to add some color and something to kind of catch your eye. I also think like a fire pit with some good seating, like if you don't have that, that's almost becoming an expectation. And so that would be something you want to have.
Okay, I love it. All right. Here's another question. If somebody says, I have $1,000 and I want to create a brand or improve my brand, what would your go-to first point of thought be?
Man, yeah, I know, I'm thinking about that. I feel like my first thought is I always ask them so many questions to get in their head of what they want their brand to be all about. So I mean, I'd say book a call with us so I can ask you a lot of questions because there's so many different like styles. I love a good playful brand, but some people just want to be refined and literary, and that we can do that too. But I would say, yeah, let me pick your brain a little bit. And then, when people think about branding, they think logo, right? Like that's kind of
Mhm.
the top thing to think about. But I would also just think about like what's the whole feeling you want your guests to have and like how can we take that beyond just a logo. So that's like, okay, what do we want the actual messaging of the brand to be? Like, is there a voice that we're kind of portraying on the website that's a little bit like quirky and fun? Or like we do like brand patterns with our brand packages that can be used throughout, whether you're like printing that on paper to put in a frame in your house or I mean obviously like social media and websites, those are great assets to use. So I would say think more holistically about it, not just like one logo, but like how can I create this like feeling that's being portrayed to the guest.
Yeah. No, that's so good. Thank you for letting me just put you on the spot.
Oh yeah.
It's fun. We like it.
No, that's so fun. Okay, I want to move to the lightning round. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to answer with the very first thing that comes to mind. And Olivia, I'll start with you.
Okay.
Where is your favorite place to vacation?
Oh, Florida.
What part?
Siesta Key, Florida. The whitest sand, Sarasota,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
I've heard it's stunning. I've actually never been.
Oh,
But yeah, I know so many people down there. Yeah, I've got to go.
It's not my favorite trip ever, but it's my default. Like, if I'm gonna go back again and again, like, yeah,
Mhm.
that feels like
All right, Ashlyn, how about you, girl?
I was maybe gonna say the same thing, but I'll say something different since we just said that. One of my favorite places I've ever been is Banff, Canada. It is just beautiful, clear water, mountain lakes, and just stunning. Like one of the most
It is pretty gorgeous.
Yeah.
I've been to Banff a couple of times, and when I was there, I was mesmerized. This was probably back in 1993, if I'm not mistaken. Wow, am I dating myself? You guys were probably born, but beside the point. But there were all these little prairie dogs that you could sit on the ground and feed the prairie dogs.
Oh no!
Oh, they didn't let us feed them. But do you ever see prairie
Oh,
dogs?
that was like my favorite animal for years because I love prairie dogs.
I love the trip that Dad ran into one.
Oh my word!
Oh,
That's
Dad killed a prairie dog.
well, she did actually in a golf cart. I was actually behind her. It was pretty sad. Or like an ATV. You're doing
ATV
Oh, God.
vacations with the fellers.
All right. All right, next question. Ashlyn, we'll start with you on this one. What's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
I would love to go to Hawaii, and I have never been. And that also pairs really well with my goal to paint a surfboard mural. So if anyone would like to make that happen, fly in tandem, I would love to do it.
There you go. There you go. Hawaii's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. I love it. Olivia, how about you?
Mine is Tonga, which is a tiny little island out by Fiji. And it's where the humpback whale migration happens, and you can dive with them for like a ton of money, but like it is my dream and I would love to do it someday.
There you go. I've never heard of such a thing. That's a new answer.
It's pretty crazy. You should look up some videos on YouTube.
I will have to do that. I will have to do that. All right, Olivia, I'll start with you on this one. What's one thing you know now that you wished you knew when you were starting out in the world of short-term rentals?
Man, I feel like I knew this, but not to the extent. Like, I think, well, two things come to mind. Just people. I think, like, build your network and build it strong. And starting out, we tried to do that, but we kind of started in like very locally. There's not a ton of Airbnb happening in our area. So it kind of, we took a little bit of the long route to kind of get connected to the right places. And so I think if I had that to do over again, I would plug into your group faster. I also, my second answer is mentorship, and I'm part of Paige Hayes. Co-design groups. I work on projects with her. I've trained under her. She's fantastic, and she's been in this industry for so long. And I connected with her pretty early in our journey, but I'm like, I would have just done that like day one. So
Mhm. Love that. Love that. Okay, Ashlyn, how about you?
I would say I came into this business not fully comprehending the word business. I was like, we're gonna do fun, creative things for short-term rentals. That's gonna be so fun. And it has been super fun. But before you take the step of entrepreneurship, like you can't quite prepare for like, oh, what does that look like on the day to day? And so there's been a lot more things on the back end that Olivia and I have just been like, oh yeah, like didn't think about that, or like that's something we have to learn. And you just kind of learn things one by one as you go. And so even just like when we started this, we laughed because Olivia was like, "Just start this with me. I'll bring us clients." And he was so confident, and then we were like, scrounging for clients. So that was just like, I think we're very optimistic at heart, and so it was like a little bit of a okay, yeah, there's like a lot to learn here. But
Yeah.
it's been a journey, and it's been good.
and I thought I would love sales. I actually like hate sales. Yeah, I just please hire me. Like I don't want to. I was screaming to the internet. But
Yeah, sales is a tough thing because I think so many times folks look at sales as, okay, I have to say the right thing, or I have to present myself in a certain way, or I have to be perfect for them to hire me, right? And so I've spent many, many, many years in the corporate world in sales. And one thing I will say is when we serve others, we naturally and organically sell our services, right? And so I think having a servant heart and, you know, giving back, which I know you're already doing, and being able to showcase that too to prospective clients. I think that that is something that folks really appreciate and they recognize. When you serve other people and you don't expect anything in return, that naturally attracts people to you. And so I say, keep doing what you're doing, girlfriend.
aw, thank you. That's encouraging. I love that perspective too. The servant heart. Yeah.
You bet. You bet. Okay. Next question. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given? Olivia, I'll start with you.
I love that. Well, okay, so mine is from my grandpa. We lost him about a year ago. And so he would always tell us the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And what he meant by that is like there are all of these things that happen in life. It's very easy to get sidetracked, but there is like family is very important. And we also believe like the most important thing is our faith in Jesus. And so that's really the driving factor in our family. And it was just this reminder of hey, like, do the things, be responsible, but the main thing is to keep the main thing. And he would always capitalize, they sing like, oh, that's like really just driven my whole life. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love my grandpa.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Ashlyn, how about you?
One thing I would say is one thing my mom would always tell us is make sure you leave some margin in your life. And she just talked about margin as like the white space. She's like, so much good happens in the white space of your life.
Mhm.
Be scheduled. And naturally, I don't think Olivia and I are fantastic at this. We're always booking plane tickets. We're always like, we love life and doing things. But I think probably a lot of our creativity grew because we were raised in a way where, like, we had white space where we were at home getting bored, like, but not staying bored because we came up with stuff to do and, like, spending time with our family and not overcommitting to every extracurricular you could possibly do. And so I think in that white space, mom was probably right all along that we were,
Mhm.
growing. And so I think that's something I want to prioritize in my future, whatever that looks like, of, leaving that white space.
Absolutely. That's such great advice. I always teach folks, especially in my mentorship programs, we have to allow for just thinking time. Like put it on our calendar, just thinking time. And it sounds so boring and so like nothing, like, okay, well, what am I supposed to be thinking about? But so often if we're not aware, number one, of things we need to tackle in our businesses or things that may need improvement in our businesses, if we don't dedicate focused thinking time, which is that white space,
Yeah.
boy, oh boy, we can go for months and even years without having those problems solved or those new ideas generated. If you set a timer on your phone for 20 minutes and you're like, I'm going to brainstorm, you know, something that needs to be solved or something that needs to be improved and just come up with a whole list of ideas of how I can do it. You can carve out what are the good ideas versus the bad ones later on, but just brainstorming things and having that dedicated, clear time where nothing else is going on, where creativity can flourish, I think is so important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like that slowdown can be a hard process, but then when you do, like, there's so much good that happens.
Amen to that. Okay, last question. What's one thing and or person that you're grateful for today? Ashlyn, I'll start with you.
Today. Hmm. Wait, one thing or person?
Either one.
Okay. Well, this is such a lighthearted answer, but well, actually, I'll go. Okay, so this morning, my sister and I, Olivia, sister, we met at a coffee shop this morning, and we were like, "Wow!" Like, so I think sometimes we can get in the grind of our work and be like, "Oh, I have all this to do. Like, there's so much to do." But we were like, "Oh, like look at this. We're in the middle of a Monday and we're here together at a coffee shop working together. Like, that is something to be so thankful for." And so I'm thankful for sometimes it can be easy to minimize the blessings, but like, wow, like that's part of our day and that is not something I would have had to have had.
Yeah.
Amen.
Mm,
All right, Olivia, how about you?
I'm gonna go with a person. I'm gonna go with my husband.
I need to.
Yeah, surprise. But
Fun.
I am like still kind of a newlywed. Like we got married a year ago and it's just fun. I still love getting to do life with Jack. And it's fun that when the workday ends, like we get to hang out. So that's fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it so much. So, Ashlyn, Olivia, if folks want to learn more about Abide Away and find out perhaps how to potentially work with you or how you might be able to support them, where is the best place for them to find you online?
Yeah, so we are online at Abideaway, so abideaway.com, Facebook's Abideaway, Instagram's Abideaway, ABIDEAWAY, so Abide Away. And on our website, we have like a spot where you can book a clarity call. So that's the time when we can just have a, call, just like a Zoom call like this, where we get the chance to chat with you and hear about your needs. And our email is on our website as well.
Love it. Well, thank you both for, again, all the wonderful work you're doing. And I know that It's going to be so fun to continue to watch you blossom. So thank you again.
Thank you so much
Appreciate
for
the opportunity.
this opportunity. Yeah, appreciate it a lot.